Hi, everyone, and welcome to a new session with Code with Sally. The session run every Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time currently. For anyone who missed previous session, I would encourage you to subscribe to Code with Sally channel on YouTube. You will find that we have currently the main two playlists you'll be looking at will be the beginners. If you are looking to cover the topics we covered when we were talking about the beginner series, or you can check the intermediate series, which we are running right now. If you open any of those series, you will find that always I sorted by the oldest video at the top, and the newest video will be towards the end. So I would encourage you to go through them with the order, unless you know a topic very well, because usually we add, like we start with the basics and we keep adding on top of the topic the next session we meet. We have been talking about the asynchronous Apex during the intermediate sessions, and today is a continuation to that topic. It will be part 3 of the Apex batch. So if you missed part 1 or part 2, you'll find them in the intermediate series playlist. And today, if you have any questions while we are explaining, please let me know, and I will do my best to stop and answer your questions. And if you want to check the videos offline after that to get all the information we shared during the session, that will be very useful for you. And anytime, if you have questions, reach out to me through Code with Sally Slack. If you are not there yet, send me a message on LinkedIn, and I will give you the invitation link to join our Slack community. And otherwise, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. So today, as I mentioned, is the continuation to the batch Apex. And I keep saying, like, batch Apex, all the asynchronous Apex is very important, but like I feel the batch Apex is super, super important. Most of the projects, like usually will use it in a way or another, and you will need it. So today, we learned the previous 2 sessions about like what's batch Apex, how to write it, what's the interface that we are implementing while we are doing Apex batch, and we saw how to do unit testing last time as well. We did together in the session an example to see if one of the batches fail in the middle, what's the behavior for the batches that happening before or the batches that are happening after, to see what's the expected behavior. It's very important to know it. And also we talked about how to reserve the state between one execute to the other one. So I encourage you to revisit the previous sessions if you missed any of those. Today, we have like not super complex, like you should be now familiar with the Apex batch, but we'll explore together if we can chain one batch job from another one. The same as what we did with Queueable and future method. We'll check what do we need to do, especially in the Apex batch, if we want to do an HTTP request to consume an API. And we will do a comparison between future, Queueable, and batch Apex towards the end of the session to see, like, in one slide, what's the different structure, what are the different pieces, and the different syntax between them, just as a cheat sheet for you to look at whenever needed. And towards the end as well for the session, I prepared 3 code snippets that I'll be sharing with you for Visual Studio Code, where you can use to easily get access and create a future method, Queueable Apex, or batch Apex. Again, we are not supposed to memorize. We are supposed to understand, and if we know like what we are trying to do, what are the interfaces we are implementing, it would be easy even to go through the documentation and see what are the methods we have to implement to comply with the contract of the interface. So let's get started with today's topic. And again, if at any time anyone has a question, please let me know, and I will do my best to either guide you through which session will cover an answer for you deeply on the topic, but to keep going today, I will answer your question to the extent that you can follow along during the session as well. So the chaining batch jobs, like we saw before when we were working with future methods, that you cannot call a future method from inside of another future method. And we saw that if you call 3 future methods, method 1, method 2, method 3, they won't be executed in the same order. And they can be executed once method 3 first, then method 1, then method 2. Another time it can be 1, 2, 3. Another time it can be 2, 1, 3. So sometimes you don't care about the order, and it's fine with you that they run in a different sequence every time. But sometimes you want your jobs or your asynchronous Apex to run in a specific order, and that's where we call it chaining. Like if I have a batch job that will clean opportunities, I want this batch job to run first. When I clean the opportunities and I'm happy with the result, I want to clone and like to start another batch to clean, for example, the tasks for the opportunity. So I want them to happen in a certain sequence. I want one to finish and then start the other one. Otherwise, I can like execute two batch jobs, but I don't know. Maybe the task batch job would run first before the opportunity, and that's not the behavior I want. So that's the purpose of chaining. So one batch job can start another one. And because we said we want one to start and finish, and when it finishes, I start the other one, that's why like when we will execute the second batch job, we'll execute it inside the finish method. Because if you remember, when we discussed together the Apex jobs, we said like we'll have a start and then execute and then finish. And we said like the start will be always the first method to run, to return the records. Salesforce will take the records return, divide them into batches, and each batch will run its execute method and do the logic you are expecting to run. And then after all the execute methods are done, which means I finished every cleanup, everything I want to do in my batches, the finish method run. And that's why if we want to chain another job and we want to make sure it starts or like it gets executed after we finish the first one, we'll be chaining this in the finish method because this is the last method that will be executed in a batch job. Why would we use chaining? Again, the reason why you may need it is because sometimes you want to do things in order. Let's say you have an opportunity and you have tasks related to this opportunity, and you want to close the opportunity, and only if when the opportunity is closed, you want to, for example, delete the tasks related to this opportunity. So you don't want to go and execute the batch job for the task unless the opportunity was closed successfully. Otherwise, you don't want to run the batch for this opportunity. So sometimes your logic will dictate that you want one to happen first, then another one to happen after. And that's why if you have multi-steps or process that happen in step 1, finish that, then step 2, do this, and then step 3, do something else, that's where chaining in general come into play, whether you are using Queueable Apex or Batch Apex. Again, it's important, or it helps breaking a large workflow, which means like if you have a logic that you want some cleanup on opportunities and some cleanup on tasks, we don't want them all happening in the batch job for the opportunity. We want to split it into one for opportunity, another one for tasks, finish first the opportunity, then run the task. And that's help as well with the governor limits, because the opportunity batch job will have its own governor limit. Then when the task batch, for example, will run, it will have another governor limit that starts from 0 again. So it helps with separation of concerns, like one for opportunity, one for task, one for doing something else. And again, it helps that each of those batch jobs will have their own limits. So you are not risking hitting a limit, especially, that with batch jobs, we are working with huge number of records.
Sally,
Yeah.
in regards to governor limits, are all governor limits the same for everybody, or does it change based upon licensing?
The governor limits will be based on asynchronous Apex versus non-asynchronous Apex. It doesn't have, like you will see here in the table, like you have a column for synchronous limits and asynchronous. Most of them, you can find that they are similar, but there is differences where you will find, for example, in QJob, here 50, here 1. Here the whole heap size, here is 6 mega, here it's 12. And if you go through them, you'll find that there is differences. So the Salesforce differentiate here between the synchronous versus asynchronous, but it doesn't differentiate between them based on the license.
Okay, thank you.
You're wrong. Okay. And the last thing is if we want to execute or like chain a batch, we'll be using the same syntax we saw together last sessions that we were using database.execute batch when we wanted to run a certain batch. So if I want to run another one, I will use the same syntax, but instead from developer console, we'll do it within the finish method of the Apex batch. I've been talking for a bit. Let's see it in action together. We'll use the same example. We'll assume we have opportunity and we have another batch job for tasks. So let's start with writing the opportunity batch. So for the opportunity, and we'll consider this as like a revision as well for like how to run or write Apex batch. I try to zoom in because some people said like it's not very clear for them to see the syntax of the code. So let me know if I need to zoom in more or that's good enough for you. Okay, so first of all, we said like if we want to do a batch, we are implementing database.batchable. When we do database.batchable, and we saw the documentation last time for this interface, we found that we have 3 methods we have to include. One is the start, which will return the records that we want to do. The second one will be the execute, that when Salesforce get the records, we'll divide it into batches, whether 200 if we are not passing a batch size, or it will divide it based on the batch size that we have. So here we have this one as well, the finish. So those are the 3 methods. Okay, what we are trying to do? Let me, I would delete all the opportunities we have in the org, and we create our clean version of records that we will be working with. And the reason why I'm doing that as well is because I have a developer edition, so I don't have a lot of storage. So, and I'm using just the org for teaching. So I'm fine to delete the records, but definitely you won't be doing this in your org unless you are working with a developer org for learning. So
Okay,
what I would be,
Sally,
yeah.
quick question. So you go to the developer console to execute your statement. Is
Mhm.
there any particular reason why you don't execute them in VS Code?
For me, I prefer usually to do it here, and I see it for me at least, checking the logs in the
Okay.
the developer console. I'm more used to it, so I feel more comfortable doing it here. If you want to do it from Visual Studio Code, you can still do that. Like it would be the same.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So here, what I'll be doing just for our testing, I'll be creating and like opportunities, 20 of them. I will mark it as stage close one, and I will say certain description, and I will be creating for them as well, each a task. So it's just as simple because we want to do our logic based on that. We'll be wanting to get the opportunities that are closed and clear the description. We'll empty this description, and then we want to run another batch job that will be working on like cleaning the tasks by deleting them. So because I am assuming the scenario is that I don't care about the task once like I have the opportunity closed and we didn't do it in a trigger. So I will have a bunch of opportunities closed with tasks and I want to clear them. So that's the scenario we are trying to do. I would just create the record so we have it. So first of all, we'll go back and open our Visual Studio Code. So I have the start, execute, and finish. First is the start. The start, we said like we'll return the records that we are interested to work with. So in my case, I want to get the opportunities that are closed. And I should do that as well to go and run my query. Regardless, you want to run it in Visual Studio Code or you want to run it in Developer Console. I use Salesforce Inspector Reloaded. So I'm getting here the 20 records I created for the opportunities. So it's usually advisable that when you write your query for the batch, run it in your visuals in whatever place you prefer. Make sure that you are getting the records you are expecting or like it looks correct to you to make sure if you don't need to do anything. The execute we said like the use case as simple as I want to clear their descriptions. So I will loop through the scope, and again, scope, you can name it anything. You can have here list of opportunities instead of scope. It doesn't matter. And then what I would do here, that I'm looping through them one by one, clearing the description. Then we said, in my use case here, I don't want to do an update. I want to do database.update with all or none set to false. So I expect some may succeed, some may fail. And then the finish, we can have here a clean, like the bug log. So that's my batch job. But here, my batch job is only cleaning the opportunities. I need as well to clean, after I clean the opportunities, so for the ones that we were able to clean their description, I want to be able to clean their tasks as well. So let's go and do the task batch and come back and see how we link the two together. Here, I will do an implement as well. I will have the start and execute and finish. And that's because, again, I didn't memorize it, but because I know I'm implementing the database.batchable. And if I go to the documentation, it will tell me that those are the 3 methods with their signature that I need to do. In the finish, I will do as simple as logging that I did clean the tasks. For the query locator here, what do I need to return? I need to return I need to return the tasks for certain opportunities. So I will do here that the what ID is in opportunity IDs, and opportunity IDs should be a set of IDs that I should pass to the batch. So how would we do that? We do that by having here a constructor that will take what are the batches, opportunity IDs, and I will set this dot opportunity ID with the value that came. So I can use it. And that's, I'm just preparing like how I will link the two together. So I need to pass the opportunity IDs. And as simple as all I need to do is deleting the tasks. So, and even I can name it here, list of tasks. I can delete all the tasks. So that's the batch job of cleaning the task. It's again implementing the same interface, having the three methods. Here in my case, because I want this to happen after the opportunities get cleaned up, I need to know which one we were able to clean and which one we were not able to clean, because I don't want to delete the tasks for everything unless I was able to clean it and it succeeded. So that's why I prepared here that it will take a set of opportunity IDs, and I did here a constructor to pass it to. Okay, now the two are not related. I have two batch classes ready, but nothing is linking them together. How would I link them together? To link them together, I have to, in the finish, we said we can enqueue another batch. So I can do database.executeBatch here and pass the opportunity IDs. So that will start linking things together. How would I know which opportunities got succeeded and which one got failed? I would know by evaluating the results here. We saw it before in one example, but let's see it together. So I would do here a for loop, and I would check the results. You can do the for loop that way, or you can just do a for each for the save results. I'd like to show you different ways because you will see people using the syntax, other people will use the for each. Both are working the same. So what we are trying to do here, we are looping through the list of results. I'm checking if it successfully got updated or not. If it got updated, we need to create a like a set where we keep adding the values to it. So I created the set here, and I keep adding the IDs to it. So if an update to an opportunity succeeded, I will add its ID here. Else, I will just debug log and give the error in the log. And again, as a best practice, you should discuss with your team what's the way of logging errors or keeping track of the errors. System.debug is not the best to do that because you need to have a log file or a log entry active at the time of the issue that happened for the specific user to be able to see it. So usually we have a exception log object, we keep the errors there, or we refer to an app exchange called Nebula. We will try to cover it in one of the sessions, but you can log the error there. So one way or the other, but here for simplicity, we are doing system.debug. So now I have the list of opportunities. If you think that will work, you missed the session from last time. The reason why, because we said like here the set is empty. When I will run the execute, we'll add IDs to it. But once the execute is done, I won't be able to see the changes that happen to the process opportunity IDs. It will be gone. So in order to keep the state of the set of IDs, I need to add something. We saw it together last time, which is database.stateful. So that's something that we learned about last time. We add this in order for not losing the updates we did for the set of IDs from one execute to another. So now by having this, when the execute is done and it goes to the second batch, it won't lose the IDs. It will keep adding to them. So now I have those, and we said we want now to link the opportunity to the task. And again, you will notice here, I use the database.update. So I'm adding to the set only the opportunities that got updated because that's the requirement I have. I don't want to clean the task unless I was able to clean the opportunity first. So now what we will do, we'll have to execute the second batch. So what I will do here, I will check that I have some successful opportunities. What if all of them failed? So I'm checking that it's not empty. Then we use database.execute as usual. And here, what we are doing differently here. We saw the syntax as follows. We saw that we do database.execute-batch, and we do an instance of the batch job, and whether we pass a batch size here or we don't, and it's by default 200. The difference here that we pass the opportunity IDs, and that's because I want to pass to the task which opportunity IDs I'm interested in updating, like which tasks the task related to certain opportunities, I'm just interested to update them. So that's why we are passing from one batch to the other one. Do you always have to be passing values? No, you may just need to run the batch, and the task cleanup is just getting certain criteria, and it doesn't need in the criteria which opportunities IDs or the set of IDs. I just wanted to take the opportunity as well and show you that you can pass values to the batch through its constructor, the same way as we did with the Queueable Apex as well. We saw this in the Queueable Apex. So here we combine together how we can chain one from opportunity batch to chain the task, and how we can pass to a batch job. It doesn't have to be the task or the second batch. Maybe we wanted here to pass another parameter, and we could have a constructor and private property, and when we do the execute for this opportunity batch, we can pass it. So it can be both ways. Let's see what's the error. Okay, yeah, I switch the scope here when we were checking. I change it, say like line 19 and 21. We don't have scope, and the reason, because when we were working together here, we changed the list of opportunity name from scope to LST opportunity. So let's deploy again. Let's run it together, and then I will check the chat. I think there is some question there. So let's run this whole thing from the execute anonymous. So let's see. Let me open first one of the opportunities, and let's open the Apex job here. Apex job, we said it's where we'll go and see the batch if it's running, and we'll see now when we will run it, and we'll see together. We should have two batches, one for the task, one for the opportunity, and each batch size has it. So let's open opportunities and see the out there. One of the opportunities we have, dismiss opportunities, and I have one here, and I have here a task. So let's see when we run if the description, first we have a description here, needs cleanup. We want to clear it when we run the opportunity, and second one, we want this to be deleted as well. So let's go to the developer console, and I will clear all of that, and I will put here database.execute-batch. This is how you will be putting your batch that you want to execute asynchronously in a queue. So whenever there is resources, Salesforce will pick it up and execute it for you. And we pass the instance for the batch that we want to run, which is the opportunity cleanup batch, the first batch that we want to run. Let's execute it and see together. I will go here to the batch, Apex jobs. I will see here, this one is holding the opportunity batch finished, like it had one batch and one process, no errors. And this one is holding, it's waiting for, like it got in queued, but it was waiting for the resources. And now the task cleanup batch got executed and completed. And you will find here the Apex class. You have two names now, like one for the opportunity, then the one for the task cleanup. If I go to my sample record here, I'll find that the task got deleted, and I'll find that the description got cleaned up as well. So this is how you would chain. Definitely the data we have here, I didn't need in the first place batch for it because I have 20 opportunities and one task for each. But again, this is just for a demonstration. And because I have limited space, so I didn't go crazy with the number of records I would create, and also to make it faster so you can see the results. But in general, we know from last time and time before that mainly you would use the Apex batch when you have a lot of records you want to update. And if you update them without batch, you would hit governor limits. There is there was a question as well. Why did I change the scope name to list of opportunities? There is no reason. I saw a lot of people usually use it as a scope, as is, as I believe the documentation as well uses it as scope, but sometimes people get confused what is scope. So sometimes I change the name to make you like to make it more clear that it's nothing more than a list, and you are free to change the name for the list. So you don't have to stick with scope. You can do the name as you wish. So if you feel like list of opportunities is more meaningful, go ahead and use it. Okay, another question, and I just want to highlight it to you. Do you have to always when you chain from Apex batch, do you have to always chain only another Apex batch, or can you chain a Queueable Apex? So the answer is yes, you can chain in the finish of a batch job, a queuable job, because it's not always that I want to clean opportunities and clean tasks and clean other records. Sometimes, okay, I clean the opportunities and I clean the tasks. And after I clean both of them, I need to pass or to send an email. So I have an email or a notification Queueable Apex that maybe I created generic to be reused over and over again. I can enqueue it and use it. So you don't have to chain an Apex batch job only from Apex batch job. You can enqueue as well Queueable Apex. So that's why it's important to know when would I go with Apex batch versus I go with Queueable Apex. You can enqueue a Queueable Apex. And as I said, it's very common to use it when you don't need to chunk or to divide the records into smaller amounts. And that may be by notifying user, you know that you want to create 2 log records somewhere to summarize the 2 jobs that you just executed. So you know it's small amount of records. You don't need a batch job for it. So it's I know sometimes people can say, okay, I will do the logic in the finish. You can, and it's a discussion to do with your colleagues in the team. But sometimes you don't want to have the follow-up or sending emails mixed with your logic in the org as well. So I have here an example for you. We had this or created this NotifyAdminQueue. It implements Queueable. If you forgot the Queueable Apex, we have 2 videos about Queueable Apex you can check. And because that's another interface, the contract of this interface tells me I have to implement a method called execute. So we have it where we put our logic. Here, for simplicity, I have only the bug statement, but it can be more complex, creating email, sending email, creating task, whatever is needed, you can have it there. So I'm assuming now that I did the opportunity cleanup batch that execute after or chain after to do the task cleanup. And after the task cleanup is done, I want to notify the admin queue as well. So, and this one, we used it before in another Queueable Apex to be chained after. So I can reuse it. How I would do that, as long as I say I want to chain, so your friend or your method to go to is your finish method, because that will happen after everything is finished for the task cleanup, and the task cleanup itself happened after the opportunity cleanup happened. So that will be the last thing to do. So how would you do that is the same way that you used to enqueue a Queueable Apex. Instead of system.execute, like here, database.execute batch, we use system.enqueueJob. This is how we run Queueable Apex, and I give it an instance of the Queueable Apex I'm interested to run, which in that case, NotifyAdminQueue. So it's as simple as that. You can chain Queueable Apex as well from the Apex batch. And do you need Apex batch or Queueable Apex? Now you know the difference and when to use each. So it's easy for you to decide. And we demonstrated the NotifyAdminQueue and how we used it as well when we were working with Queueable Apex. So the thing that I want to highlight that now by separating like the logic where you will send an email or notification or creating task or whatever, like instead of having it inside the first Queueable Apex when we used to work with it, we created a separate Queueable Apex for it. We were able to reuse the code in the batch to queue it or to chain it after the batch job is done. So that's reusability, like you don't have it very locked in one spot. So that's something important to know.
Sally, I've got one, possibly two, but the first one, so when batch is executing, if you find out you have a problem, is there a way to kill it? To kill the batch? Terminate it?
The easiest way, you will have here an abort like button. You can do it. And I believe as well there is another syntax that you can send, use it from Apex using the job ID to kill it as well. But like the simplest would be through the action column here that you can do it. And the other thing, I don't know if you get a chance to check it, but like we had an example last time to explain how it will behave. Like if one batch in the middle fails, the before and after will succeed or can proceed. So it's not necessarily like that you will kill it all together unless like you suddenly discovered that there is an issue. But if there is an exception in the data or something happened in one of the batches, like it it won't, like here, for example, we had four batches processed, but one batch failed. That means three of them we were able to proceed and get the changes done, but only one failed. So check this video if you didn't see it. It will give you an idea. So you don't have to abort unless it's very like you really need to. But even if one or two fail in the middle, the remaining will be done.
So, in regards to, so we're doing batch because we have many records, and the default chunk for Salesforce is 200 records, right?
Correct.
So, are those when a chunk completes its processing? So that's within the batch. Are those records available to be seen or used?
I didn't try it myself, to be honest, like to simulate it, but I don't think they will be locked until you go to the execute for this specific batch. I'm not 100% sure. I can research and get back to you on that. And the reason why I'm thinking that way, because the batch job, sometimes you have millions of records. And when you run your batch, it can take hours. So I don't think for the duration of the batch job for the hours, the million records will be locked. I think they may be locked only when their turn is like there to do the update for them. Okay, let's move on. The next thing that we wanted to check is we saw this as well together. Can we do Apex batch callout? Let's see it together here. I have country enrichment batch. So let me remove this as if you didn't see it. And I have, again, like a country object. I'm getting them whenever there is no capital region flag URL. and I will try to execute the country enrichment batch that will get them. I want to call the same API we were working with since future method to get the country name. So I'm using the same utility class that we had. And if anyone wasn't there when we explained it, we had a video where we explained like what's API, what's JSON, how to do the HTTP request. So I would encourage you to check it out. And if you still have any questions, we can go back to it and answer it. But it's this utility method that's just doing an HTTP callout. With the results, we update the capital region flag and so on. And then we update them. And I want at the end, like, to say how many got updated. Because if there is an exception in one of them, and be careful where I put the try and catch. I put the try and catch here within the country, like for each country. If it fails, I will skip it and move on. If I put the try and catch all over the execute, if one exception will happen, it will fail it for all this chunk of records. So that's just a quick reminder, like we did it as well when we saw multiple examples when we were talking about the exception and error handling, but just to refresh your memory, placement of the try and catch is very important. So that's what would be your like Apex job. Let's try to run it and see together what would be the error. Let's see. Okay, so let's delete all the countries. Okay. Let's go here. And I will delete all the countries. Again, I'm doing this just to have a clean, fresh copy of the data without filling it or having values for it already. And I will do a quick insert. I have prepared number. I have 101, like 101 countries here updated or inserted. So let's insert it. And I'll go grab as well here the select statement that we have. And I do here, sorry, let's run it here better. And I run the execute. I will find that I have 101 records. So it was created successfully. I'm happy with that. Let's comment this for now. And I will try to run my batch. And I have two important things to show to you as well here. So first, let's try to run this with no size. So that means how many batches we'll have. We'll have only one batch because we have 101 records of countries. So let's execute this one. And let's see what happened here. It gave me too many callout. What does it mean? So too many callout is when we cannot like have more than the governor limitation here, the limits of the callout. If I check, we have maximum to do in one transaction 100. So I'm getting, it should be 101, but it's not giving me that because there is another issue. But you would have usually too many callouts 101. Here it's giving me that because it's a bit misleading, but the error is mainly because we cannot access or do HTTP callout. If you remember with future, we said between brackets callout equal true. And also we had a special flag to add with Queueable Apex when we wanted to allow callouts too. And we will have this in the summary you will have shortly. So in order for you to have callouts in a batch job, you have to add here another interface called database allows callout. So I'm telling Salesforce, I know that I will be having HTTP callout. I'm trying to access an external service and I'm okay with that. So I have to add this. Let's try it again. And let's see the error this time. We will get still an error. It won't succeed. So let's go here, Apex batch, and now it's processing. Let's see, refresh. Now give me the proper error that I was expecting. This one is a bit misleading, but you have to remember like that you need database.allow callout when you have HTTP request. Now it's telling me that I exceeded the limit because the limit of the governor limits of how many HTTP callout per transaction is 100. So what should you do in that case? Even though you are allowed to specify, like not to specify the limits and have Salesforce split it into like 200 records, when your batch class has an HTTP request, you cannot have more than 100 together, because especially if you are calling the API for each record, which is in our case what's happening. For each of the countries I'm getting, I'm calling the HTTP request to get the details from the API for this country. So you cannot have more than 100 because that's the limit. So let's say I split it into 10. I won't get this error anymore. It will run and I should get the results unless the API is down. That's a different story. But now it's completed. I have 11 and 11 batches processed. If I open and check the countries, sorry. So the countries here, I can see what's the flag URL. Those are the details that I got from the API and inserted, because when I created, I just created with a country name. Did I update well, I was successful with the 101? No, like it told me that we were able to update 90. So that means there is still some countries, like 11 countries or 12 records that they didn't have like the data. We were not able to update it. That means like the API didn't have these records. Something happened for those specific countries when we called them. You can take that and dig deeper and see what happened there. But that's why we had here as well the stateful, because I wanted to give an update at the end, which ones got updated. So that's why we are adding the count and showing at the end like how many countries were updated successfully.
Sally?
Yeah.
Can you review how you changed the batch count? What did you do to change the batch count?
You change the batch count by passing an optional parameter here.
Okay. Okay, got it.
The execute batch can be called without it. When you don't call without it, Salesforce by default splits your records into 200. If you have less, that means you will have one batch. But if you have more than 200, it will split it. Each batch has maximum 200. If you pass a number here, 20, 50, maybe 1,000, that's something up to you, and it will use this size to split the records instead of the 200 by default. Make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Any other questions? I don't see questions in the chat. Okay. So that's how you can make a callout. So yes, we can do callout as we did from the future method, from the Queueable Apex. The batch job can do callout as well. You must implement the database.allow callout, and that's what we added here. Be mindful that the error in the Apex job wasn't descriptive to tell you what is the error, because it said like exceeded the callout, which like can be misleading, but like you know that the number of callouts is 100. So when it tells you like even one, I couldn't be able to make it, that should like indicate that that means something wrong, and I should like check it or check like why this happened. Like too many callouts, one, it doesn't make sense. It tells you like it wasn't able to do on even one. So that should refresh your memory. Yes, I have to implement database allows callout. It's useful whenever there is a use case that you want. Like, for example, let's assume like I have the countries loaded. And in previous sessions, we had like a trigger that whenever a country is added, we do this callout. But what if I have countries records created before, creating or implementing this trigger? In that case, I could create a batch, especially like they are thousands of records or too many records. Again, here, my example is not very like Apex appropriate because I didn't have so many records that require Apex batch job. Again, I am in like developer org, limited with space and how many records I can create. And also I wanted to be started and finished in quick time so you can see the output. But in real life, like you may have other APIs for external system that do something for you, but you have a historical set of records, huge amount that you don't have this implemented before they were created, and you want to do the same. Each chunk or each batch can have maximum 100 callout because each execute when it's a new transaction, and we can have maximum 100 callout per transaction. So you have to be mindful, even though you can change the batch size to be 1,000, 200, 300, or even when you don't pass it, it will be maximum 200. When you have HTTP request, you have to use a size, and the maximum size would be depending. Like if you make 2 callouts, then maybe you can make only the batch size 50, because for each record you do 2 HTTP requests, that will lead you to the 100. So it depends on how many HTTP callout you will be making or HTTP request per record. That will dictate how many records your batch size can be maximum. But let's say if it's 1, so the maximum will be 100. Conrad, do you have a question?
Yeah. So when you did the call out to get the information about the country,
Yeah.
um, we did it one at a time, correct?
Yes.
So is it dependent upon the API as to whether you can do more than one at a time, or?
Yes, exactly. So if, for example, I have another API that accept the list of country names, so I didn't have to do one by one, and I could pass the list of country names together, and that would be counted as one. So in that case, my batch job can take more records because I don't have to limit it, because if I pass for example, 200, it will have a comma separated of the 200 and pass it, and it's still counted as one. What will limit you there is the size or the other API up to how many like comma separated values it can accept, because sometimes you can keep adding comma, but it will exceed the maximum of the string that they allow. Like their string they were expecting up to 1,000 character, but if you keep adding, you may exceed that limit, so it will fail in another way, not for the limit of the 100. So you have to be mindful about the requirements of the external API you are using. Like if it allows multiple, you have to know up to how many and be mindful with that. Or if does it allow multiple to be called in one API call, then that will save you how many APIs you are consuming for the 100. Or in our case here, the API itself doesn't allow multiple, so I have to do it one by one.
Okay, thank you.
Make sense?
Yes.
Okay, great. So callouts inside, they happen usually within the execute where your logic is happening. So again, it's just a summary. Be mindful about the limit of the 100 callout. I cannot tell you how many you have to be limited to or what's the size, because as I said, like it depends on the limitations. You may have to split the 100 into 2, or maybe like you have 3 API calls for each record. So you may reduce the number of records more, or your API allow multiple records to be passed or comma separated values. So you won't have this limit. The most important thing is that you have 100 callouts limit. You have to figure out and think well how you won't hit one-on-one callouts limit as we saw together. So it depends on the situation and the API like nature you are working with. Okay, next is like now we finished the Apex batch. I just want to summarize to you this table. I will have it for you like here in the session. If you will take a screenshot for it, please refer in that we covered during the session. So if anyone wants to go back and check the live videos or the videos on YouTube, they can go back. But this is a brief, like what we covered so far. So for the future, it's just a method. We don't create a class. Queueable and Batch, we had to create classes, and they had to implement interface. Queueable for Queueable Apex, database.batchable for the batch Apex. Simply for the future method, we had like the add future before the method, or add future with callout if we are doing HTTP request. So that would be just one method. It can be within your trigger handler, whether same class, like you don't have to create a structure for it. Those two, we had to create a different class, and we have to build the method to match the criteria or the contract of the interface we are working with. The interface for Queueable dictate that we need to have one method. For the start, for the batch Apex, we have start, execute, finish. It was too tight for me to add the parameters, but you know that they expect Queueable context as like not Queueable context. They expect those, like here the batchable context BC, or the list of S object here in batchable context, and in the final the batchable context. But it's a bit crowded here to add them, so you would know to add like the parameters. How we call the feature is normal, like we call a method, like it's a regular method. For Queueable Apex, I put for you the enqueue job. We tried it today. Batch Apex, we tried it as well. Database.execute batch, and you know that you can have a size as well for the batch. Future method, we saw there is a limitation. You cannot like chain method from another method that is future. For Queueable, we do it through the inside the execute. Through the batch, we do it within the finish. Finally, that's the difference in syntax we had when we wanted to work with HTTP callout or HTTP request. And this is where like we had callout true for future method. We had database.allow callout, or database allow callouts as well for like the batch. That just to give you an idea, like the different syntax as a summary between the three. And we'll keep adding to this table when we go to the scheduled Apex as well. We'll add to the table. I know we are on time, so feel free to drop. I just want to share with you a bonus code snippet that I'll be adding to GitHub and you can access to. And so you can check it offline on YouTube if you have to drop. We have a code snippet Y. I just wanted to make it easier for you. If you like, it give you a summary of what we covered, or easier access to the syntax. So it can save you time. It can help you like avoid some issues or some errors. And it can be an easy start for anyone who's starting new to Apex asynchronous in general. So how to do, you will have in, in GitHub, I will have a, like when I will upload it, you will have a file called Apex Useful Templates code snippet. You can use it, but for you to create one, you do Command Shift P, and you will do snippet configure snippets. For me, I have a file already that I created for you, but you can create a global if you want it to be available for different projects and workspace you have in Visual Studio Code. Or if you want it specific for one project, you create a snippet file for the project you have open. For me, I created a global. What you would do is that when you'll open, it will have some comments. You can take copy, like copy the code you have here in GitHub and replace it. How you would be able to use it, let me show you quickly. Test class. And you can, after you saved your prompts in the prompt file, you can write prompt underscore. You will have one for batch Apex, one for future method, and one for Queueable Apex. When you hit for the future method, I added some commands for you to remember when to use the future method, and that it has to be static, void. If you want HTTP callout, include the callout true. It accepts only primitive data type or collection of primitive data types and IDs. So I have here, and like there's some variables that you can change. So callout true for you to remember that you can remove the method you do tab, it goes to the next variable, testing prompt. And the third is like what's the type. For example, it takes decimal. And then here, the input, I have input called the value, for example. So it changed. So it's a placeholder for you to start if you want to. The same, I have one for the batch, Apex, and Queueable. You can here, if you have a batch, you're working with the Queueable Apex, for example, you can clear and write prompt underscore Apex. You can choose Queueable. You can put your class name. Let's say it was a test class, and I have my variable. We change the constructor name for you. And again, I have some comments for you. It allows callout or not. And here allows callout for you and comment that you can remove it. You can define variables and constructor. Then I put here that you have the execute logic and what you can do to chain another viewable job if you want. So those samples will be available for you. Also one for the batch. And I have like explanation that we have allow callout and stateful and when to remove them. Private properties if you need to, and if you want, you can create a constructor for it if you will be passing it, or if it's private property, not to be passed, but to keep the state for it from one execute to another. So you know now where to go. Then you have the query locator, you can update your SOCL here, and then the execute, and I have here some reminders for you that what happens when a chunk fail or a batch fail, the batch size, and if you pass like what happens with the testing, because you remember we have the limitation of one batch execution for test class. So I try to explain this limit here just as a reminder. And then I put an example here, as we discussed today, that you can chain another batch or to enqueue another queueable Apex. So this file will be available for you on GitHub. Feel free if you want to use it. You can go ahead and use it. I didn't test it, to be honest. I prepared it for you, but I didn't test it. So for any reason, if you use the code snippet and you notice an error here or there in the syntax, please let me know. I will update the code snippet on GitHub, so anyone who pulls it after you will have the good version with no issues. And let me know if you have any suggestions for adding any enhancements to this code snippet. But I thought it would be a nice idea to give you a summary about it and to use it. The question I will leave you with, now we created a batch. Do we have to always go to execute anonymous and run it? Or can we schedule it in a way or another to run, for example, every day at night at 8 a.m., at 9 p.m., whatever the requirement is? The answer for that is yes, we can schedule it. And that will take us to our new topics next time, scheduled Apex. And that's another type of the asynchronous Apex we have. I hope the session was useful. I hope you learned something new. And I will see you next Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you have any questions, ping me on Slack or LinkedIn. If you like this session, please share it with others and hit subscribe in the channel and like for the video. That will be useful. And I will see you next time. Thank you so much.